Welcome everyone. Glad to see you on my channel. Today I will tell you about an unusual story, an amazing story about companionship and love. I wish you a pleasant audience. Kate, aren't you making this up? My mother asked hopefully. Berta doesn't seem like a woman who likes to bring discord into the family. All young girls think of their mothers-in-law as witches and expect to be tripped up by them. Mom, you only saw her once at the wedding. What can you know about her? And by the way, I don't seem like the kind of woman who likes to talk about her mother-in-law. I'd be at peace with everybody. I'm so tired at work that I don't care for animosity, and I don't have time to make it up. I know. You're busy and you're my mitten. We see each other so rarely, there's really no reason for us to argue. And what does Alex himself say? He insists that I check again. Before, I just came across incompetent doctors who couldn't identify the cause of infertility. When he said that, I could just hear my mother-in-law's voice. I have lived with Alex for 7 years, and I understand when he speaks his mind and when I understand her vocabulary. I once again suggested that he get checked out together. Again, he said he would not go through with such a humiliating procedure. He's already convinced that it's not him. All the men in their family are healthy. My father and uncles had 2 children each. My grandfather and his brothers had 3 and were born in the early years of their marriage. I learned that phrase by heart. Only with him it sounds more and more aggressive every time. There was never a time that after a visit to his mother, he did not start talking about it. This time he put it like this. Just admit that you are guilty. How much longer can you deny something that's been clear to everyone? Then I asked, do you want a baby or do you want to make it my fault? I thought he was going to hit me. So he looked at me, looked away, and went into the hallway. He took his jacket off the rack, slipped into his sneakers, and was about to leave. I asked, somewhere at 11:00 p.m. He smirked and answered, to get an infertility test. He slammed the door and left, and he was gone by morning. Before I left for work, I couldn't stand it and called my mother. Asking politely, Alex, not you? She replies, it's more interesting you live. You don't even know where your husband is. When she hung up, I didn't call back. I went to work. Tears came to my eyes the whole shift. The steaks were tasteless, falling apart into fibers. Talked to Bruno, asked him to fill in for me for the next 2 shifts so I could get 4 days off. Came back from work, Alex still wasn't there. He didn't come. Went to the bus station, bought a ticket. I'm here to see you, Mummy. Dad will be back from his trip in time. Let's just say I missed you. I took a mini vacation and came to see you. Leaving her ancient town, an island of glowing, sickly bridges. Kate knew exactly why she was going to the States, for the simple reason of going to the States, for the simple reason of going to culinary arts college. There are those amazing people who know exactly what they're going to do for the rest of their lives from childhood. That's the kind of person she was. The trucker's dad called from his trip and said he'd be there in 3 days. Just let Kate make something good to eat. He always praised her in the same way, but with all his heart, who would get such a treasure? My daughter giggled. Only Daddy is worthy of borscht. Daddy didn't flinch, and with his hand he paid to rent a room in the States. And when you graduate, you'll go on a cruise ship as a chef, too. Kate laughed again. Dad, to begin with, at least took a junior employee. And you need to improve my English. And the chief cooks are mostly men. Although women also appear, I have hope. Dad knew which strings to play. Kate dreamed of traveling. As a child, she thought she could quite live without all sorts of dolls and sweets, but without traveling with Daddy in the cab of a truck. Never. And you can cook there on the gas stove, just open the hatch to have a hood. How interesting, but the liner is still cooler. Kate was lucky from the beginning. Polly My dad's partner's daughter was also going to go to the States, but to some medical school. After some deliberation, the parents decided that it was better for every girl to live inexplicably with some neighbors. It was better for two countrymen to live together in one apartment and rented a two-room flat in the Southwest. An independent life began. Kate and Polly never became close friends. But they didn't fight either. They made mutually convenient roommates. Polly, the silver medalist, got into pediatrics at the medical school. From the very first day, she zealously worked for her credits. This clever girl, as Kate called her, was completely indifferent to life in the kitchen, but very neat. You are just a doctor and a roommate and enjoyed cooking for two already. Kate, how do you always manage to come up with something new and delicious on our Kopek? Such a girl, like a daisy, and so practical. I don't know. Easily, declared Kate, dancing at the stove, and a ponytail of long blonde hair on the top also danced. What are you reading there in your biology notes? The zucchini omelette is served. Reading about you, by the way. Blue eyes and blonde hair didn't appear until 6,000 years ago. That's very small by evolutionary standards. The mutation occurred in Northern Europe and was viable because of the attractiveness of the combination to the opposite sex. Blue-eyed blonde who loves to cook, you are the crown of evolution in men's eyes. She studied easily, with no effort at all, and remembered with gratitude her mother, who could hardly convince her daughter to finish 11 classes. Kate wanted to go to college after 9th grade, and her mother wouldn't have minded if it hadn't been for her fear of letting such a little girl go alone to the big city. For Kate, she came up with other reasons. It would be hard for me and Dad to pay your rent for so long, and you'd still have to struggle in college with hated high school algebra. This way you'll still be home for a couple of years, and then no more algebra. Kate thought and decided it was better to say goodbye to algebra at home. Now she praised both her mother and herself. Studying was a pleasure. She won prizes in academic competitions and cooking championships. It was such an encouragement to her that even in English, she sometimes forced herself to tease herself in quite rainy weather. Kate was out walking one evening. The rain, lingering and dreary, caught her in the middle of her walk and drove her into the nearest supermarket. Kate wandered between the aisles, put the thick cream at 50 off in her basket, which would be good for gravy, and went to the checkout line. There was a tipsy guy standing second in line of 7, muttering nastily and rather loudly into his cell phone. So if you want to know my opinion, only Mom is worthy of love. Only Daddy is worthy of borscht. Kate poked her head into the space without addressing anyone. But the woman behind her laughed approvingly, softly. But the tall guy standing in front of Kate turned around and asked doubtfully, looking at the frail, blue-eyed blonde who must be eating flower nectar. Does Mademoiselle know how to make borscht? Mademoiselle cook, answered Kate, as if every day she is approached in packs, interrupting each other by all the cash registers of the metropolis, charming brown-eyed and brunettes. That's how she and Alex met. The supervisor sent the last piece of cake into her brightly painted mouth and said, "Wow, Berta, congratulations. You surprised me, Alex. I thought no one marries at 25. Young people now live long for themselves. Maybe it's right, I don't know. The bride is not pregnant." No, that's the thing. On the one hand, of course, it's good that he's not belly first. On the other hand, then why the rush? If he didn't have Grandma's apartment, Alex wouldn't think about having a family for a long time. You're really something, Berta. The apartment got in her way. People wish they were so lucky. Yeah, I'm not complaining either. At least I didn't spend my whole life putting up with my mother-in-law for nothing. She bequeathed the apartment to her youngest grandson. Our lawyer has confirmed that the daughter-in-law will not have the right to this property. If only children appear, then they are heirs. Do you like your daughter-in-law? She immediately asked the manager. I don't know. I haven't understood yet. She's very young. She just graduated as a cook and got a job. I got a job in a good restaurant where I had an internship, but as an assistant for now. So now you will have Alex, and he will always be fed. Already a plus and not to sit on the neck. And she can provide for herself, and also a fat plus. Not locals, that's a minus. Parents live in a small state, small town. Not poor at all? Well, I wouldn't say mother's a librarian, but father's a trucker. They live in a private house with the household. Kate paid her rent while she studied here alone. She's not a bore. She's not spoiled. She knows how to do everything. What else do you need? Berta, now such girls are creepy. And you have quite a good option yet. I don't know. I'm not happy about it, Melissa, you know. Not for nothing. Come on, Berta. We all go through it, mother's jealousy. The first grandchild will come along and everything will calm down inside. How was it with your eldest daughter-in-law? It's all right now. Kate didn't really want to have a big wedding. What's the point? She sees a glimpse of them every week at work in more than one. Her father took advantage of a flight across the states to meet his future son. In-law and matchmakers and suggested they visit. Let's give the young ones a trip to Thailand. It's their holiday. I'll pay for the tickets and the apartment. You'll give what you think is necessary for expenses. And when you come back, we'll come together and go to the countryside. My partner has a cozy cottage on the shore in the most fishy places. And we'll celebrate the wedding in a family circle. The matchmaker perked up and nodded in agreement, but I could barely open my tightly pressed lips. Maybe you are alone in the world, Simon. We have a big family. Alex has an older brother and his wife and 2 kids. My husband has brothers, family, uncles, and aunts. Big joint celebrations are accepted. This is a family tradition. We can't break it just because it's fashionable to travel. And you're right, Berta. I am an orphan. Kate's father responded friendly. My family, my wife and daughter. They're the only ones I'm used to reckoning with. Kate, are you okay with a wedding reception instead of Thailand? I can't decide alone, Dad. Let's get Alex's opinion, too. That's right, daughter. We should do it together. What do you think about taking Alex? What do you say to that? Alex's mom picked up on this as if her kid was about to recite a prepared poem for Santa Claus. I think we should respect family traditions. Alex dispelled her worries. The wedding party was held at the restaurant where Kate had recently worked. The chef Gorge swore to the young bride that it would be a royal table from the cold shop, and he kept his weighty word. Kate now and then ran into the kitchen, deftly maneuvering in tight places so as not to stain the wedding dress, and looked at her favorite backside of the banquet, and giggled with her favorite colleagues. Suzy is a pastry chef by God. The creator of magic cakes jokingly chased her away. Go to the groom and the guests. It's your day as queen of the hall. And here you have time to twirl. Kate went to the groom and the guests. There's a mysterious mother. In-law Berta whispering something in Alex's ear. Daddy has gathered a small circle of men around him. Found the fisherman, I guess. And Mother Mary just sat and quietly enjoyed looking at the restaurant hall, stylishly decorated for the wedding. Between the tables, under the tables, and crossing the entire space, there were children running around. The boys dressed amusingly in suits and ties, the girls in princess dresses. Some great uncle who was watching them run around merrily. He got up from the table and barked a toast to the continuation of the family. Hooray, don't let me down, Alex. Catch up with your brother. It's a little early for that, Berta replied quietly, so as not to offend her relative. I agree. Kate's mom smiled softly, and I don't think mine will rush into it. Of course, she will have to forget about working cruises now. It's a bit of a rethinking of dreams, but I like her land-based job too. Yeah. The main thing is not to interfere with the family, she added weightily. Her wedding is in 2 days. After the wedding went Kate with Alex, mom and dad, father. mother-in-law, his eldest son, and a couple of uncles who, if not on a fishing trip, ran away from her. My mother-in-law couldn't take a vacation from work. August was warm that year, and there were few mosquitoes. The fishermen spent the night in Dad's partner's cabin on the shore, and Kate and Alex in a nearby cabin whose owners had gone south on vacation and agreed to give the fishing cottage briefly to the newlyweds. Romantic, winked at the young Kate's dad, as on the island with quiet displeasure. Alex said, listening to the river as they lay in the warm night in their arms shortly before dawn. So we're doubly on the island, Kate responded. She was very happy on the island, and only one thing was a little troubling. Sometimes they were careless. Kate forgot to take her pills a couple of times. It was just that there were very pleasant days, lots of meetings and events, so she didn't remember. Her mother reproached her daughter gently but agitatedly in private. Kate, but if you started as an adult, so behave as an adult. That's a responsibility. Alex, tell him to remind you. This concerns both of you. Mommy doesn't even know I'm on the pill. You tell him, and he'll know. Family isn't all about sharing nice things. I never thought it was only a woman's problem. Unexpectedly, firmly stated soft Kate, Mom, how he himself did not think and did not ask. Okay, you're a baby, but he's kind of a grown-up. And even though they just drank tea, my mother grabbed, put water in the kettle, and put it on the stove. She always did that when she was thinking or worried about something. Did the doctor prescribe pills for you? She asked when the kettle started booing. Polly recommended it. Kate confessed. Polly is a smart girl, but she's not a doctor yet, and she's not studying to be a gynecologist. You'd better go and see a doctor. Mom, I will. But by the way, Polly is taking the same pills herself, and she certainly won't do anything bad to herself. Oh, I said something unnecessary. Don't tell just her mom, but please. She'll make up her own mind. I don't decide what her mother knows and what she doesn't know. That's just Polly's business. But be careful, girls, and you talk to Alex and go to the doctor. Didn't your mother-in-law ask you if you take protection? No. She didn't. She rarely comes to me at all. Hello and goodbye. About the weather. That's all. She prefers to talk to Alex alone. That's even better for me. I don't know what to talk to her about anyway. Maybe she's waiting for you to make the first move, Mom suggested cautiously. Mammy, I'm just not used to her for some steps yet. I'll get used to it and then I'll take a step, Kate reassured her. The first summer after the wedding. Honeymoon, to the great smell and noise of the river. Shooting stars and large pike, perch which all the guests, fishermen, dragged Kate, old-fashioned dishes according to the monastery recipe. Alex had never eaten such delicious food before the wedding. His brother, father, and uncles unanimously declared that they envied him. For Chanterelle's Kate and Alex went alone. She never told anyone else of her grandfather's secrets and places. How far away is it all? It's like another life. She's not even 30 yet. She's a young girl by today's standards. She feels so exhausted, and it's not about work at all. There's a pleasant fatigue there, even when there's no time to sit down. She's a hot shop cook. It's her favorite thing to do when guests on her shift pass tips to the kitchen. And she's not lazy to leave a review on the restaurant's website that makes others drool. Isn't that great? Co-workers love Kate for her easygoing, cozy personality. And the adult manager also appreciates her promptness. She doesn't brag about her successes at home. This irritates Alex. Listen, leave your work at work. Let me tell you about the electrician. Interesting, isn't it? If not about the electrics themselves, I wonder what kind of bosses you have, colleagues, I wonder. Almost half of my husband's life I don't know. Kate, I want to rest at home. I want to forget about the working moments. You're the fan of your haute cuisine. Well, lucky you. Why should I have to do that? It's not the first year he's been like this. Of course, it didn't happen all of a sudden. Kate had noticed the calls, but she really wanted to believe that it was an accident. Tired at work, had a bad day. Her mother found something she needed to call Alex for help again. Over the years, my mother-in-law's eyesight had become acute. She saw even the slightest flaw in the dacha, which should be immediately eliminated so as not to entail terrible cataclysms. Alex, I don't mind helping my parents. But why is it only you, brother? At least sometimes can replace you. Sam has a family, kids. He's more busy, and I'm not your family. You and I haven't even been to the movies in 1,000 years. We haven't popped popcorn in the half-light. Well, you compared your whims and kids at different things. Do you want to spend your free time with the one you love, a whim? Kate asked softly. Why do you keep clinging? Alex snapped. I just said that children are more important. Aren't all the people you love important? Don't pretend like you're a little girl. That's not true anymore. By the way, my mom wants us to go to the cottage together tomorrow. Uncle Michael arrives. Alex, I told you twice, I'm changing a colleague at work. Her kid's sick. Why does no one ever fill in for you? So I don't get sick. Kate smiled rather happily. Comfortable, childless co-worker. That's what Mom says. It's strange. Why are you having this conversation? Strange that we still don't have children. Of course, if you do not lie to me and do not swallow pills all this time, you know that giving birth to the first after 26 years is considered old sparingly. Alex, it hasn't been that way for a long time. Modern medicine has moved the boundary to 35 years old, and I have already been checked at the beginning of the year. I have not found any pathologies, and in general, I am a healthy girl. This is because I did not grow up in a metropolis. If you had gone with me, you would have heard from the doctor that I just need to spend more time with my husband, not to get nervous, get positive emotions, and the baby will come when his time comes. Until my next visit to my mom, my husband would calm down and soften up. He would meet her at the restaurant after his shift. Sometimes they went out to have fun or to visit friends they hadn't been to in a while. Everything seemed to be getting better. The serious, kind Alex, with whom she'd fallen so in love that she'd given up her plans to get a job on a cruise liner, was coming back. College girlfriend also Kate, with whom they were going to go on a voyage. At the same time, to start at least a waitress, resentfully shrugged. I don't get it. Who needs to get married nowadays? Only people like you. I don't know who else, but some electrician. All right, I'll make it halfway around the world by the oceans while you divorce. All I'll tell later. We're better not about the lost, in her words. Not about the cruise that left without her. Kate, Alex did not say. Wouldn't tell about some auto electrician. Alex was proud to be earning decently more than those classmates who had graduated. Not every one of these aspiring lawyers could pay for auto maintenance by a handyman of my level. As a young girl, Kate, in love, did not pay much attention to this trait of his. He had no real friends either. He only competed with everyone in something. When he was going to propose to Kate, he showed all his colleagues pictures of her and then proudly told her of all our marrieds, I would have the most beautiful wife. No one at first wanted to believe that with such a figure could be a cook. All he cared about was showing off like his mother. Now, by the way, more and more often, he wanted to suddenly pack a travel bag and go first to his parents and then somewhere far away on some round world trip. Bruno's manager would swear exquisitely. That's his own expression. But he'll let her go with his best recommendation if she explains everything. Her lightness on the rise hasn't gone anywhere, but each time outweighed by a still living love. She has been examined twice by serious specialists in her field. They recommended her compatriot and former neighbor Polly, who climbed the career ladder steadily, but confidently and rotated only in his medical circle. Medical luminaries did not find Kate any predisposition to infertility and insisted on examining her husband. One skinny professor said so, and if he wants to reproduce, will come. But Alex was offended at the first hint that he might be the cause. Returning from her parents, Kate found only a note on an empty desk. Gone on vacation. Zoe, the pastry chef. If your mother-in-law cares about her grandchildren, she will find words to talk her son into going to the doctor. He will at least listen to his mother carefully, and maybe something will stick in his head. Try to be on the same page with her, then everything will work out for you. Zoe was a kind and wise woman, with an unflappable bronze face, reminiscent of the wife of an Indian chief. She was feared by the manager Bruno himself, though she had never hurt a kitten in her life. Berta listened to Kate reluctantly, making no secret of the fact that she was doing her a favor. And then she declared, "Are you so ruthless that you don't even realize how, by humiliating your husband with your demands or being too sly, you want to blame your infertility on him? Why? Paid for the right test result? And here's your diagnosis. All these years you thought your son was living with such a monster, and you thought I wouldn't know that you swallowed handfuls of birth control pills after you got married. And before you got married. And before you got married, I think it was twice as much. Alex told me about your pills. He trusts me, and he should. No one will listen and help like a mother. You don't understand that. You won't be a mother. I forbade you to drink that stuff, but it was too late. You've burned out all your womanhood, and you know it yourself. That's why you try so hard at work, to cover up your feminine inferiority. You show your provincial ambition. You hope that they will open an empty tube. That would have worked for you in your homeland. But here in every school canteen there's a cook like that. If I were you, I'd leave. Maybe it's for the best that you're childless. Your father is an orphan. You don't know what genes are there." Kate looked silently into her mother-in-law's eyes, and she turned away the angry look first, without saying goodbye or looking back. Still silent, Kate got up and left the apartment. Crying in the cab was embarrassing, but the tears flowed by themselves. The elderly cab driver was silent, not asking anything. Quietly, he played some beautiful blues. The woman sang in a low, velvet voice with a hoarse edge. Kate slept alone in the empty apartment for a couple of days. When she returned from her mother-in-law's house, she gathered 2 travel bags with clothes and shoes and rushed to the door. But I stopped. I had to wait for Alex, to look into his eyes and listen to what he had to say himself. She wanted to believe, seeing that she was ready to leave. Maybe he wouldn't let her go. They would fix things together. On the 3rd day, he came back early in the morning. Kate had just had the day off and was still asleep. But at the sound of the key in the keyhole, she woke up and jumped out into the corridor like a squirrel. Alex, without saying hello, nodded at the bags. "That's good. You're all packed. I think we'll get a quick divorce, too. My new did not agree to come here now while you are here. Shai is sorry for you, kind. She says, why upset an already unhappy woman? I don't know how quickly she'll realize which one of us is unhappy. Me or her, with such a piece of happiness as you." Kate threw her coat from the hanger right over her pajamas, picked up her bags, and not feeling their weight, slipped out the door. She called a cab from the doorway. I drove around town for a long time and couldn't decide where to go. I was now at Zoe's. Somehow it had decided on its own. She lived in the suburbs in her own house with her husband, 3 children, and a niece who had arrived to go to college. One day, Kate and the restaurant girls were there on New Year's Eve. There were whole drifts of snow, whiter than snow, on the tall ship pines by the fence, and a squirrel was running along the trunk. It was good. Winter had sped on affectionately, and you were still pondering where to go, wench, and began to heal the girls' wounds with southern hospitality. For almost a month, Kate lived at the home of Zoe and her husband Carter. She had always avoided the attic in friendly homes for fear of crowding her hosts. Here, she felt like she was visiting her parents. In the evenings, the whole family would gather on the wide terrace that the pine tree came in on two sides and have leisurely conversations about everything in the world to make Kate feel. Kate decided to talk to her mother-in-law. She was advised to do so by her boss, Cozy. Often, on her day off, she would get up before everyone else and walk alone, and no one asked for company. She needed to be alone. Kate managed to file for divorce first, Zoe, taking her to the registry office the same afternoon. Let at least a little pebble fall from the girl's soul. She's the one who leaves without looking back, not her husband. It turned out that we would not have to wait long. No children, no property disputes. In a month she will be free. Kate remarked with surprised joy that the thought of divorce status did not make her unhappy. In the early days, she remembered in detail all the 7 years of life with Alex, and quietly, mentally said goodbye to all the good things that had been. She remembered her mother telling him about the baby pills. "I heard your mom tell mine at the wedding that it was too soon for us to think about having kids. And I agree with that. I just got a job and I want to grow from assistant to full chef. And you and I can take vacations at the same time and travel wherever we want while there are no kids." That's how the girls go. Some of them are on a last-minute trip. Some of them are on their own. And we can do it on our own. Is it for nothing? Kate, what a good girl you are. I didn't even ask you how you were dealing with it, and you figured it out on your own. Yeah, but you take these drugs every day, even better at the same time. And I forgot a couple of times I told you this secret so you could remind me too, just in case. He did, of course, forget to remind me. But Kate quickly managed to develop the habit herself. A couple of weeks after his return, Alex suddenly came back to the subject himself. "Kate, I want to ask you, don't take these pills anymore. It can be harmful. What if all these chemicals and hormones will cause some kind of failure? And in general, there will be no children until we are going to have them. What are we going to do then? You said you didn't like other ways. You changed your mind." "That's great, Alex. I'm happy to do without chemicals, although these are tried and tested and safe remedies." "You misunderstood me," husband objected embarrassedly. "I mean, you have to find a way to do without hormones like a coil or something." "Wow, you really know a lot about women's issues, don't you?" Kate laughed in surprise. "Yes, I was just making an example. You have friends who work in medicine, so you have to learn other methods. I want you to stay healthy, don't I?" What a naive little fool she had been after a father like that. She had to pick a husband like that. She only thought her husband was caring. And he started this conversation after he dropped in for a couple of hours to visit her mother. If it wasn't for her, he wouldn't have thought to ask how his wife solves women's problems. She had been a comfortable wife for so many years. The girls at work laughed that Cook's husbands often ate store, bought dumplings at home. Their wives took a break from the kitchen. But Kate tried to cook tasty, varied meals at home and didn't see it as any kind of feat. She thought it was the right thing to do. And to understand is to take it easy when her husband accidentally says an offensive nonsense in irritation. He was just tired at work. What nonsense? And then 7 years ago, she pestered Polly again with her problem. The pills don't work for them. There's something safer. Polly told her it was never safe for a girl to take the pill and backed up her story with Thori. She slipped Kate a couple of articles from her professors. Such was her character. And a mother in general, she declared. I guess I'm an idealist, but marriage, in my opinion, is supposed to make life easier. And you've only made it more complicated. If your Alex is so afraid of medication, the logical conclusion is to let him take care of that side himself. A lot of questionable men do. We're not at that level of backwardness to blame everything on women after all. Alex said he promised to think about it, And Kate hastened to rejoice when she expected something. She always expected the best, not the worst. I guess the opposite must be true, to look at life soberly and not be so disappointed later. Alex thought about it for a week and then stopped by my mom's for a couple of hours and made the decision to sacrifice herself. Kate now recalls it with sad irony, but then she was very grateful to Mr. Alex. He rejoiced for her, congratulated her, noted of course the work began to take up more time than before, and that was to be expected. 2 weeks later, Berta's mother-in-law, at her own birthday party, declared to her at the table at the top of her voice, "Kate, the most important thing is that work is not to the detriment of the family. You get tired at work, family is neglected. It's only in your glossy magazines, right, that you can successfully combine both. What's yours?" Kate sincerely did not understand at once. "I don't read glossy magazines." Mother-in-law, the birthday girl, pursed her lips. The eldest daughter-in-law, Sizzy, quietly tugged Kate's dress under the table. "Don't pay any attention to Alberta," she advised. When they came into the kitchen to check on the hot food, "I'm actually very grateful that you showed up. At least she lost interest in me. Sam and I have had our 2 boys in the meantime. Like our father-in-law says, have a baby, she'll back off. Quietly, because there's no point in you 2 fighting. A divorce with kids is like a division of property." And in the evening, when they got back to their house, Alex suggested, "Kate, let's drop the birth control. If we have a baby, we'll have a baby. I'm ready. My salary is good. We can afford our double with 1 child. What's the point of waiting? Alex, maybe we should wait a little longer. I just got promoted. I was so looking forward to it. And then it's back to square one. You'll always get promoted." "You're capable," Alex objected, even with some pride, as it seemed to her. "Don't worry. You're not a lawyer who got new laws while she was on maternity leave. What's in your kitchen for a year and a half will change." On the way to work in the morning, Kate called her mother and told her what decision they had made. "You're not very happy," Mom guessed. "You just gave in to him." "Yeah, it was kind of sudden. I wasn't ready at all. I thought we'd be fine together, and kids in 5 or 7 years. But Alex wants to." "Well, now that you've said yes, look on the bright side. The baby's going to be born sooner. He'll grow up sooner. You've got an apartment. You're not poor. Your father and I will always help you if you need it. You've got more strength, health, and nerve than older women. Before you know it, you're a young mother, a young beauty, or a young adult. But you'll be friends with your child." Mom dispelled the anxiety. "And really, why complicate things?" My father called the same evening. "My mother told me about your plans. I approve and order a fisherman's heir. I don't want to take the fishing grounds with me to my grave." Kate's parents didn't bring up this conversation for 2 years, as if it never happened. Kate's mother believed, the more you rush things, the less they want to happen. Especially since the guys are so young to worry at all is ridiculous. Berta, on the way home from work, annoyed all over again, showed up to re-stitch an old man's jacket for a child. These pull are reflective almost every year. She and her husband probably already have most of their income from child benefits. She doesn't even have time to think about it, but she's always chipper and happy, like everything is fine. Some people are so irresponsible. It's amazing that they both don't drink. Usually alcoholics give birth to so many children. The youngest son, after the divorce, is still hanging out without wife and without children, and he is somehow estranged from his mother. Alex Berta loved her youngest son more than anyone in the family. With her eldest son, there was no time for tenderness. She lived with her mother-in-law at the time. Berta shed so many powerless tears trying to adjust to that capricious bitch. Complaining to her husband about his mother was useless. Her husband had also invented an outlet for his willful complaints. He had found a young, cheerful intern at work who didn't whine. Then her mother-in-law got worried and started to bring him back into the family, just scared that Berta would start sharing their apartment if he left. You never know how things would have worked out if her grandmother had not died, who had been widowed long ago and lived alone in the apartment, which was supposed to be her only granddaughter. That's where Berta moved in with her husband and son. They didn't even change the wallpaper after the deceased. She was in no hurry to get away from her mother-in-law. Her husband, too, was so happy to have his own place, even if it wasn't his own, that he abandoned his trainee. Berta soon found out she was expecting a baby again. She still remembers how happy that made her. It gave me hope for something good. Silent and stubborn Sam looked more and more sideways and fidgeted more near his father. And Berta burned out on her husband. He gave her to his mother to be torn apart, while he rested with his mistress and lived. Now he lives in her apartment as if nothing had happened. We need to remind him more often whose territory this is. And now she would have a baby boy who would need her. Berta was expecting a girl. But she had Alex. Big eyes at once with curls of dark bangs like a baby of an advertising picture. Unlike Sam, he grew obedient and affectionate. Gratefully he responded to her love. Over the years, when Berta already had grandchildren from her eldest son, Sam, she still continued to wait for grandchildren from her youngest. She was sure she would love them more. She would never admit it to anyone. It was embarrassing to admit in such a way that she didn't like Sam very much, and her sons looked at grandmother warily. Every word has to be gotten out of them. Susie must be turning them against her. She didn't like that Susie right away. And her husband Dan immediately took to grazing her son and daughter-in-law. Lived with them more than at home and claimed everything was perfect. It's a beautiful family. You haven't been kicked out of there yet. Sam and Susie, as they say, I'm a great help with the kids. Grandpa's an authority figure to the boys. Yeah, just a godfather. Why don't you mark on your calendar how many days you've been home in a month for clarity? You didn't say you needed me here. If there's anything I can do to help, I don't say no. Thanks, I can handle it. Grandpa only pleased Alex, even though he had already gone to live in his grandmother's apartment. It was much closer to his work, but he did not forget about Mom. Every weekend he visited her at home and at the cottage, gave her gifts and help. At work, others would shut up, even envied her. Not everyone had a son like that. Lucky. And I don't envy the guy. The supervisor joked he won't find a girl. You'll bite her. Out of jealousy, Berta would get tired of flitting between two fires. Berta had to smile and giggle. The headmistress would make a joke of it, and she wouldn't shut her mouth. She was really afraid to imagine Alex meeting someone and alienating her. He's so decent, who will he get? You went to a colleague's birthday party? Were there girls there? She interrogated. Of course there were. We're not monks or stylists, replied good-naturedly the son of Alex. I'm counting on you to have better luck than your brother. There are so many unemployed loafers and these stylists nowadays. And you're a decent guy with a good job, with your own place. Choose wisely. Mommy, I wasn't even thinking about a serious relationship. You're too scared in advance. With the non-serious ones, be careful. And then he tells her that he has a girlfriend. They are serious and are going to get married. Not move in together, live together and see how it turns out, as is the custom now, but to go to the registry office. And they have only known each other for 4 months, and her son has never mentioned her. Berta immediately prepared herself for a nagging criticism and an active defense. She was a little intimidated by the girls at work. Don't be too hard on your future daughter-in-law. How many times have aunts foolishly lost their sons like that? Depends on what kind of girl he gets and how much he's in love with. She'll think you hurt her feelings. And he doesn't even come in anymore, son. And yesterday he was the most loving. Berta decided to be careful. The resemblance to the older daughter, in-law in dating when the new one she didn't find. It's the other one that's kind of suspicious, nothing to cling to. Very young, Berta sighed, while she was going through the other arguments. Mom, she's not a schoolgirl. You were fond of saying that in your generation. Everyone was trying to get married by the time they were 20. Why do you think it's impossible now? Life is different now. You've never seen her parents in these small towns when the factories closed and the people left. The only people left are those who don't want anything. They're drinking anyway, where you're sure the bride doesn't have that kind of kin attached to her. Mama, I'm not marrying kin. But if it's so important to you, Kate's father is practically a non-drinker. He's a trucker who drives all the time. He provides for Kate's family here for 2 years, lives in a nice rented apartment, doesn't go hungry. And sometimes she buys clothes and shoes. Her dad remits money and her mom is a librarian. Kate has been reading since she was a child. She talks to her a lot. Not bored and her profession is good, and she didn't dream of finding a prince not to work. In short, there are no girls like that anymore. Don't pick on her for nothing or we'll have a fight. I've never said that. Not even in jest. Berta remembered the warning again and hastened to speak. I was just surprised. I wish I had prepared my mother gradually. I guess I'll have to put up with it. Berta thought wistfully at the wedding, looking at the young people. The daughter-in-law was younger than she was and twice as slender, and her husband jumped around her as if she were not his, but someone else's wife. My daughter would probably expect my Alex to jump around her too. I'm used to seeing things like that. I decided not to go to the matchmakers to visit them. I did not want to feed mosquitoes and lied that they did not give me a vacation. They will not go to work to find out how true it is. But for the sake of decorum, I came to the bus station to see the newlyweds off, Dan with Sam and her new relatives. Baked cakes for the trip, watched my daughter-in-law and daughter-in-law and daughter-in-law. Surely her mother had taught her how to lure the boys to her. And how Dan's eye lit up, happy that he was leaving me, and he wasn't even hiding it. Every day since morning, I wanted to call Alex. I delayed to check how often he would remember his mother. He called himself but every other day, and all the time he was in a hurry to finish the conversation. They had somewhere to be all the time. It was as if they were not on their honeymoon, but on a frantic business trip. And when they got home, they had to wait 2 days before their son came home. Alex showed up tanned and smiling like the lifeguard from the show. She was even disappointed that he wasn't bored in the middle of nowhere. He was so happy to tell jokes about his wife's parents, something about fishing and mushrooms. Berta interrupted him with a question. Kate, isn't yours pregnant? Mom, how can you understand it in such a short time? Kate was very good. She solved the problem quickly herself. She takes some reliable pills of a new generation. So early grandchildren are not afraid. Pills. Berta almost choked. But then she got her second wind. Your wonderful Kate isn't afraid that when she wants to be a mother, she won't be able to poison you with all those hormones if she hasn't already. Irresponsibility, selfishness. She had found the weak spot of the perfect daughter-in-law, clung to it and pounded on it. A year later, she gloatingly announced that her fears had been confirmed. After 2, not a week went by that the girls at work didn't listen. What she said to her son, to her useless, barren daughter-in-law. Girls, but I think it's better to let him divorce her peacefully now, until he is quite used to it and has not acquired any serious joint property, while a young, healthy wife without someone else's trailer can bring her. Berta, as much as I listen to all this, I wonder, said the silent dressmaker Jane, who was considered a good conversationalist because she rarely spoke herself. I've been working with you a long time, and I remember when you used to weep for your mother-in-law. Why don't you interrupt this cycle of angry mother-in-laws in nature? The girls fell silent and watched as Berta caught the air with her mouth in confusion. Don't my daughters-in-law deserve a good mother-in-law? Oh, If we all got what we deserved, life would be quite scary. Mockingly, Jane cut off and went back to her vow of silence. But Berta didn't feel like resuming the conversation, and so the son quietly divorced. Berta was preparing for some serial scenes. She herself did not know what. For the arrival of the matchmakers, for the full-fledged calls of the retired daughter-in-law, and waiting for her son at the work or in the driveway to property claims. Berta was aware that Kate had paid off every penny of her paycheck for new furniture and was waiting for the claim to move the furniture out. But all went quietly, as if Kate had never existed. It was a dream. But Alex also started coming over to my mom less often on weekends, and then only briefly. And after work he stopped it all. From his conversations on the phone I saw some excuses. My mother pestered me with questions to Sam. Do you communicate with your brother? I don't like him. Mom, who do you like? The older son sniggered. He's doing all right, he's living and working. Something you're not telling me? Mom, since when do you ask me about him? I thought you two understood each other. I already told you. In my opinion, it's okay. Sam was always impossible to talk to. For the next 2 days, Alex didn't call once. And on the third, Berta stayed late at work because of the supervisor's birthday party. After sitting with my colleagues at the subway station, I looked at my watch and thought Alex should be home by now. Called the intercom. It was immediately opened. How can you open the door to the entryway without even raising your voice, without asking who it is? Alex was waiting for someone. The door opened, a bright blonde with curvy hips in a short crimson kimono. With lazy surprise, she asked Berta, "Who are you here to see? You must be mistaken." I wasn't. "Who are you?" Berta asked sternly. "Oh, I see. You're Alex's mother," said the blonde with a lazy smile. "And I'm his new wife. I know my son is divorced, but I haven't heard that he's remarried. I'm a common-law wife," the blonde condescendingly explained. "Where's Alex?" "He's at the store getting something to eat for dinner." "Aren't you going to invite me in?" "Come in, of course," the blonde agreed. "Alex and I are happy to have visitors, but we like them to call ahead. It's more convenient for everyone. I'm not a guest, I'm a mother," Berta dryly reminded and sat down on the couch in the living room. "Mom is a guest too, if she does not live here," with a smile retorted blonde. "I'm Vendi, by the way." "Berta," she said grudgingly. "Berta." "Good to meet you," Vendi replied indifferently. "How nice for you, you insolent bitch." Berta looked around the living room. Everything seemed to be the same as it had been. And it wasn't the same. The light and wide guest table was cluttered with machines, lamps, jars, tubes, small tools, tissues, and gloves. Tubes, small tools, tissues, and gloves. Vendi unhurriedly and nonchalantly dismantled this pile and stacked while walking sideways. "Are you a manicurist?" asked Berta. And not to be silent and to sound careless at the same time. "Manicurist," condescendingly corrected her, and in her eyes Berta read, "You think. Hit me, old fool." Of course Berta thought it up herself. But she was offended as if it had been said by the insolent Vendi. "It's a good thing Alex is finally here." "Oh, Mom," he nodded. "Not too happy about it. They met without me." "Yes, my love." She sighed and kissed him lazily on the lips. "Spit out in the kitchen what you brought. I'll be with you in a minute." Berta decided to take advantage of the joke and followed her son into the kitchen. "Cooked food?" She picked up the beginning of the conversation, nodding at the boxes and vacuum packs that her son was taking out of the bag. "Mom, we're busy people. We don't have time to cook." "I can't come to my son just because I miss him." "Sure, you can only call ahead. Vendi can have clients." "What clients in your apartment and at night?" "What am I going to do, scare them away?" "Berta is a home service. The master is quite profitable business, if you know how to do it well. And yes, female clients like to sit in comfort, chatting, singed behind her back, inaudibly approached Vendy. "That's it, Mom, all cleared up?" asked Alex in a tone. "I have to go," Berta said, in a way that made her son feel ashamed. "Call you a cab," he immediately offered, rather. Berta agreed to a cab. "Let him splurge on it. A manicure for sure will come to visit. We should tell him that Vendy has settled in well, uses his apartment as a salon, so as not to pay rent for manicure, a new office. There's probably no place to live either. Found a fool for her charms. Alex is aware that she considers herself his wife. When she managed to lure Alex to the cottage from the nail salon that his apartment had become, it didn't get any easier for Berta. All her elaborate rehearsals went down the drain. Alex interrupted the uncomfortable conversation on the first sentence. "Mom, don't start. She loves me, and that's enough for me. But she doesn't have to love my relatives either. She doesn't live in your apartment. You don't see her, and you won't see her. And you won't see her." "How can I not see her?" Berta asked in bewilderment. "If she really is your future wife, it is impossible for us not to meet. Mom, many civilized people live like this. If you don't like her, why do you have to see her? Maybe you won't date me either, like civilized people." She almost banished Berta. "Don't make a spectacle of yourself, Mom," Alex replied indifferently. "Did you have to check the wiring in the bath?" "Went to check it out." He redid everything she asked for and warned her when she left to ask for Sam's help sometimes too. The older brother is great at the same things as the younger. And he lives closer to the cottage. And he and Vendy are also saving up for a vacation. She hasn't been to the sea in 2 years, so he'll be taking overtime, extra shifts and shifts. "How did she treat you?" Berta blurted out. "Mom, she loves me and wants to have the baby you were worried about not having." "Vendy, I don't think she wants to bring him to you. If you're going to be so prejudiced against her..." "Berta, what did you want?" Sympathetically, she sniggered. "Not everyone is like your ex-fiancé, I told you so. But this Vendy Alex is going to have a baby, and if you calm down and mind your own business and don't point out her faults to your son, she won't turn her grandson against you either. I want what's best for you, and it's as if you don't want what's best for yourself." Berta thought about Melissa's words all evening and had to agree with them, at least for the time being, while she was not yet aware of this Vendy's weaknesses. But time passed, and she was never given the opportunity to find out. Alex came in less often and didn't share the details of his life. He seemed tired. He began to look his age, though until recently he had looked like a very young guy. All was well, Mom. That lull didn't last long. Before the New Year's holidays, Berta experienced a burst of joy. Her son called and asked if they were expecting him at the dacha on New Year's Eve, as usual. "Of course, my son. Why do you ask?" said Berta animatedly, and in the most welcoming voice she could. "And bring Vendy for sure. We're expecting you to meet Sam, to have a little chat with Susie. I'll be alone. She's on vacation. She won't be back until January 5th. Oh, alone without you. What are you doing on New Year's Eve in winter?" "Alone. Mom, Thailand is the best place for New Year's Eve. We didn't have enough for 2 anyway. And then this cheap trip came along. We couldn't turn her down because we couldn't make enough for 2. You took all that recycling and you didn't have time. Vendy didn't have any clients. Mom, why do you need these little domestic problems of ours? In order to have clients, you need to invest in good consumables, in the tools. So I had to invest a little, and the washing machine had to change the old one. It's already more expensive to fix. For the cost of 2 halves, you can buy a new one." She went on vacation with all her work equipment. What if the hotel clientele will be exposed? Berta extended, confused, afraid to voice the language that struck her son. The thought that Vendy would do without Thailand then, too, if she considered Alex her husband. How then? Does she leave him for a family holiday like New Year's Eve? Berta herself thought rather unhappy with her husband, sons, and daughter-in-law. And on New Year's Eve it is necessary to honor tradition and to gather at one table. It was the way of decent people. And they celebrated the New Year with only one fewer people than in the past 7 years. We drank champagne to the chime. We had to talk about something. Berta brought up planting at the cottage. What new things to plant in the spring? Maybe more strawberries for the kids. Dan's phone rang. He perked up for the first time all evening, jumped out from the table onto the cold veranda, and then out into the street. Berta immediately needed a new jar of jam and went out on the veranda too. As she approached the front door quietly, she heard a conversation behind the door. "Simon, my friend, what a man you are, right? How glad I am that you call me. Congratulations on the new one. I was afraid that everyone..." "Oh yeah, of course I'll try to go fishing for those tons." "Yeah, sure, they'll give you a vacation. Where they can't give an old fisherman a vacation. Matchmaker. You're still a matchmaker for me. Tell your beautiful wife hello from me, but be sure she's healthy. And to take care of her husband. Goodbye, darling, I'm not going to disappear. And I will not." Vendi, the 5th of January, did not return, sent to Seams. "I will stay for 2 more months. I got a job at a salon." "What 2 months? Where did you get the money to buy a flat?" Alex immediately rushed to call the number was disconnected 2 for 3 days. He began to think about going to the police. A tourist went missing in Pattaya. She hasn't been in touch. What if something happened to her? I remembered that in the dresser in the bedroom there were a couple of high-quality printed photos of Vendi, a custom photo shoot for her birthday. It's better to have those attached to the application. Alex rarely looked in the bottom drawer, maybe there. Since buying this furniture, boxes of Kate's Golden Girls had been kept for every holiday. Her birthday, New Year's Day, March 8. He would buy her earrings or a pendant or a small ring. Not some sultans, but something to have. Her mother thought that these were not just gifts, but useful investments. What to give all sorts of nonsense. On leaving, Kate didn't even remember these useful investments. Mother argued that the ex-wife would still apply for property she could consider hers. You'll see, it's just a matter of time. For the first few weeks and then months, Alex waited tensely and dreaded Kate's call or father-in-law's visit. But enough time had passed to realize she didn't need anything from him to mail or give to her mother to turn into the pawn shop. It's not like Vendi is going to wear something she gave to another woman. Alex opened the drawer. It was almost empty except for a couple of cheap car fobs donated by customers of the auto shop. Berta had learned of the missing Vendi and the gold bling, not from Alex, but from her eldest son. Her throat tightened with rage. Why isn't there a criminal case against the bastard yet? Dan and Sam looked at her mockingly calm and tired. Mom, Alex isn't going to start any case. He gave her the vacation money himself. She didn't take any of his property. These things belonged to Kate. But she didn't need them, much less him. How generous, Berta shrieked. You should at least tell your sons once that they shouldn't be such idiots. Children, look at your father. And don't be such idiots, said Sam, mockingly bowed to Sam. It's a good thing she ran off with those gold pieces now, instead of giving him the rest of his life as a payoff. Mom, though she knew it was unlikely Kate would be dissuaded, but still cautiously tried. Live at home a little longer. You just came to your senses, and here you are again at a frantic pace in work, courses. Mommy, but after working classes I'll be completely free, and no one's going to make me worry. And that's the most important thing. It's easier to get tired physically than it is to exhaust yourself. So it will not be harder for me than before. Simon, Kate's father, patiently consoled his wife in the evenings. Our Kate knows what she needs. Here, she will have too much time for sadness and reflection, and this will help her to improve her health and start a new life. So she's still so young, and I don't see that she's disappointed in all mankind. especially since she has us and she has great friends at work. And Kate went back to the States and took a course to get a certificate as a ship's cook. Bruno, cussing exquisitely, threatened that he would not cut her shifts because of her studies. He wouldn't take on an extra cook in the hot shop before she left. The owner certainly would not go for that. But he warned the others that Kate should not replace anyone, let them not count on her. She's also learning. He always said he had friends from a janitor to an academic, and this company found an agency owner. Such firms recruit crews for ships. When he saw Kate, he started scaring her from the doorstep. You think romance? The world will look through the porthole. Sometimes I don't have time to look. All I have to do is work. There are almost no days off. One thing is never to stay for a minute. Even at night, you have 3 other people in the cabin sharing the cramped quarters. Chinese women. Filipino women still, you have to get used to each other. You'd better make some money on land and go on that cruise as a tourist. Thank you for the warning. But I am ready to work. Real reviews read a lot, and personally talk to people who worked on cruises as cooks. It suits me if I realize that the mistake. I won't cry and panic. I'll work off my contract and go back on dry land. And if I like it, I'll go on. I'll live at sea for a while. All right, see for yourself. Some people like it. Sure, between shifts you can go ashore and walk around. You'll see more than you do here, but be prepared for a demotion. Keep in mind, the position on the first cruise will be lower than onshore. But there is some possibility that 7 years of experience and recommendations from Bruno will help you. Kate agreed to go as a junior assistant cook as well, but she was hired as a 3rd cook on a ship cruising along the Norwegian coast. 6 months after Wendy disappeared, Dan left Berta at the very beginning of the summer. He was going on vacation to a former saint, on a fishing trip. Not a day went by that Berta didn't make some remark about it. One day she noticed the suitcases. They were too full of junk for fishing. You're going to have a social life out there, going to country clubs? Why do you need 3 pairs of summer shoes? Berta, I didn't want any scandals beforehand, so as not to wear you and myself out. I thought I'd let you know before I left, so now I've decided it's better for me and you to live separately. If you do not want to be divorced, we will not even divorce. I won't take anything but clothes and shoes. I'll go away like Kate went away. Where are you aiming? I'm curious. Do you think Sam and Susie will be happy to see you? It's one thing when you talk. It's another thing when you're a permanent resident in their cramped quarters. Or have you already found an alternate airfield waiting for you with pies and on this bed? I got a job at a construction site with guest workers at a year, round-paid fishing base. I will manage the base people, accommodation, communication, lobbyists, show places. The house is cozy. The pay is good. I can give you some money if you need it. Agreed to start a new job right away after vacation. They'll move my stuff in advance. So you're leaving me? Everyone conspired to leave me. You and I left each other a long time ago. We only live for appearances. And who needs that appearance? If you need it, can you tell your girlfriends that I went to work? They'll be jealous that you're a breadwinner and you'll feel better. That's what you want, isn't it? Berta was so stunned that she couldn't find the words to answer. She walked away with a look of outraged dignity. How she had not noticed that her husband had changed so much when he had had time. It is obvious that Long thought about his departure, not just in the heart, and picked up a job with accommodation. Such calm determination. Now it's no use. That same evening, Berta came to Alex. Who else could she complain to? Not the jealous girlfriends who only pretend to be sympathetic. The windows are dark. No answer to the buzzer. Called her son on her cell phone. He answered that tomorrow he was off, so he wouldn't be home to spend the night. And when she's going to visit him next time, let her call at least the night before. He has his own life. He has his own life. In the tube, through Alex's voice and probably behind his back could be heard carefree female voices. Berta wanted to say my father left me, but she pressed to end the call. Sighing, she decided to dial the number of her eldest son. But imagine the look on her daughter-in-law's face, and changed her mind. Will gloat that the mother-in-law has nowhere to go. Berta did not happen to see her mother-in-law. Lonely, confused, you could also lose the attention of the children. She would have been triumphant. It would have looked as if fate had avenged her. She wouldn't give her daughter-in-law that satisfaction. Let her be sure her mother-in-law enjoys her freedom. A week later, Sam stopped by to pick her up right at work at the end of the day. Mom, I couldn't make it sooner. I got swamped. My father came to see me before he went on vacation. He told me he was getting a new job. He's got a job he likes, and the pay's better. Asked me to keep an eye on you, to keep you busy. He's so kind. He's so kind. Berta would laugh. He's the one who left me. He found a job with frogs in the shade, so he wouldn't have to live with me. But he didn't go to a young frog. Try to joke, Sam. And by the way, it would be a good idea for you to take a break from each other. Wouldn't you and Susie like to take a break from each other? I'm the last one to know. You can count on us. We're soulmates, and the children keep us going. We have no time to quarrel and no energy. You've seen how hyperactive they are. By the way, I almost forgot. You should have brought them home. Susie gave you the cabbage and onion pie, just the way you like it. She did her best. Of course, her pies are not as fancy as her. Sam stopped in mid-sentence, almost said too much. That's true. Kate's pies were good, and the rest of the menu too. Unexpectedly, Berta agreed. But your Susies are pretty good too. You just have to bake more often and get the hang of it. Thank you. Pass them on. I can bake for my grandchildren from time to time. You're welcome, and don't be shy. Go somewhere together, and I will sit for a while, at least not behind the case. I'll run around with them myself for a while. You be careful, Mom, or we'll get used to it. We'll start abusing them. Don't worry. I'll let you know I'm not happy. If you get on my nerves. Berta had to go on vacation. The rest of the female staff took advantage of her absence on the first day and gossiped freely over evening tea. That's what they say is the evil of female loneliness. But sometimes it's good. If our Berta Dawn had not run away to the fishing lodge, she would still be barking at her sons and daughters-in-law. He used to stay overnight at the eldest son's house a lot. It looks different than going to the neighboring states for good. But you can see how she's mellowed out. She's still a bitch sometimes, but she's not like that anymore. Her daughter-in-law's not so bad anymore, and her grandchildren. She even complimented them a couple of times. And they suddenly bought her a voucher to a sanatorium. Here you are giggling, these girls. And with sister-in-law, Berta lucky. Smart, concluded the headmistress. She didn't bring up old mistakes. Took a chance to make things right. She had a decent little girl, too. Alex would have lived with her if it wasn't for Berta being a jerk. Looking for something to pick on, she found it. Infertile. And the doctors didn't confirm it. How many cases are like this? You live 10 years without children, and then all of a sudden you have one. It's not uncommon. Our men never want to admit that it could be about them, and then they raise other people's children. So what? The one who raised them is the father. By the way, I do not think it was Kate's fault either. Alex managed to live with 3 girls after her, and now he changes his girlfriends very often. Berta is afraid that the first woman she meets will be the mother of her grandchild. She already is. I want to tell her. It's been 7 years since he and Kate got divorced, and no one has come to him with a 2-strip pregnancy test. Doesn't that tell you anything? Let's not jump to conclusions like our Berta did. Let her rest well. Have you heard from her ex-sister-in-law, Kate? I did. For the first time all evening, a silent Tanya's voice came through. My new neighbor, the assistant cook at the restaurant where Kate worked. She now lives in, and with former colleagues does not lose touch. I can't believe she sailed on all those seas. Her husband is from there, so she moved there. Oh, good for her. Who did she marry? I don't know. I didn't ask about her. The conversation just happened. Well, She's got a strong Nordic character. She's not curious about anything. Brother Sam and his wife called Alex to go together to visit Mom in a sanatorium. Well, we'll go as a group. Let the children have more time with the grandchildren. I'd better meet her from the train when she returns. I've already planned the weekend. Maybe I'll take a freelance job too. I thought I'd switch cars. We were going to tell you the news on the way. So tell me now, Alex, we're about to pick up our third. We're waiting for the girl. What can I say? Well done. Sam is making a family plan for both of us brothers. I disagree. It doesn't take away from your contribution. As the women say, from no one. Alex grinned grimly. Maybe it's just someone who's too picky, suggested Susie innocently. Alex was lying about the weekend plans. He hadn't planned anything important for the weekend for a long time. A part-time job would be good for him. Saving money for a new car, at least something to keep him happy for a while. The customer had rescheduled the electrician's visit for next week, and Alex didn't know what he would do. He had recently said goodbye to his last girlfriend and had not yet found a new one. In fact, it was not as interesting as it seemed to the deeply married seekers of spicy adventures. All come across some similar. Or is it just his luck? The weekend fell on Saturday. Woke up on Friday, saw a rare clear sky, got in the car, and drove for some reason in the direction of the north. The last time I was there was a long time ago. Things must have changed since walking in the park with Kate. Just the two of us. She had just graduated from college. The day was just as bright but very windy, with the wind blowing the splashing fountains and constantly throwing them in her face and up her scruff. Kate laughed. Storm. Alex didn't like crowds. And as he walked down to the famous fountain, he crossed the canal immediately and headed to the spacious left side of the park, where there were fewer visitors. A few people were seated right on the rocks on the bank. Alex also decided to sit down by the water. There was no wind today. A red-headed squirrel was running right at him through the grass. There are a lot of them here, he remembered. Behind her was a blonde kid in jeans, wearing overalls. About 3, maybe 4 years old. James, stop. The squirrel is afraid of you, came a laughing female voice that was very familiar to Alex. He looked up and saw Kate. If anything had changed in her, it was for the better. She had always been very pretty as it was, but not flashy. And now she was glowing and attracting looks. Kate recognized him at once. Alex froze in place with the dumbest expression he guessed, with an astonished look on his face as he realized she was pleased with him. Alex, this meeting just 5 minutes ago, remembered walking here after college graduation. Baby ran up to Kate, tugging quietly at her dress. Mommy, let's go. Squirrel ran away. But I saw which tree. I'll show you. My son James. James, this is Mom's old friend Alex. Hello, the boy answered. Come on, I'll show you the squirrel. Alex, would you like to go somewhere and have a cup of coffee? Sure, if you're not expected. Kate looked, but didn't see anyone looking in their direction or waiting for anyone. Not waiting. I'm alone and totally free. Go ahead, of course. I didn't think you'd want to talk to me. What are you talking about? It's been years. I'm just curious. Anyway, it's all for the best. It's like my mom says. Yeah, sometimes it's for the best, but it's not always for yours. James is your new husband's son? And mine. Born personally friendly. Kate laughed. Maybe I just matured a little later for motherhood. That's how it all came together. Can't you see how much he looks like me? Or is it just a lie to make me feel good? He does. I couldn't help but admit it to Alex. At the sidewalk cafe, Kate took a coloring book and a set of pencils out of her backpack. James immediately became very serious and concentrated and began to draw. So you can force him to sit quietly for half an hour. Kate smiled. Do you live around here? Alex asked. We're going to Grandma and Grandpa's for a visit, but I wanted to stay here for a couple of days and see my friends. And we live pretty far away. Are you and your husband here? No, he's on a trip. I'm less bored when I'm on the road. A trucker or what? Senior mate on a cruise ship. 4 months on the road and 2 months at home. Didn't do him any harm, and you're just waiting on the beach. I got my own little restaurant. Yeah, I got things to do while he's at sea. But I can leave the little restaurant in peace. When I want to relax, I have a reliable team, and it is much easier to work in this format than in a fancy restaurant, or even more so on a cruise ship. I have a family establishment, like in Greek villages. I don't know what it's like in Greek villages. So go see it. By the way, I didn't see as much as you might think either. The first itinerary was along the coast of Norway. Shock, of course, at first. The work is a lot harder than I imagined. It was there that I also met Daniel, but I didn't want to start something serious. So when the contract was over, I felt relieved that we were parting. Then I got another job. It was easier for me there. I fell in love with Greece, especially the islands. When I came back, I went to my parents, and Daniel had been waiting for me for a week. My dad managed to pull a stunt. He told Daniel directly that I had been married for 7 years. We were planning on having a baby, but it didn't happen. Wanted to see the reaction. You see, the reaction liked the candidate, approved. Oh no, it swirled. And it didn't look like you wished. I won't cringe. I'm satisfied. Now you tell me about yourself. Stop asking wife, kids, how's Sam and Susie? Daddy and Mummy? Alex answered that, as at the interview, at work his words seemed to him as though they were of some importance compared to Kate's lively and happy story. There were moments when he really wanted to think that she had made up all this happy story to boast of her prosperous life before her ex-husband who had treated her so badly. But it was foolish to lie to herself. Kate spoke sincerely. The truthfulness of her words was convinced by the warm glow walking from her and the little James with the smart blue eyes. Kate said something else, like she was saying hello to his family. He was just looking at her son. Amazingly, she didn't hold a grudge against him at all. I guess he was just someone insignificant and gray in her life, so flashed somewhere in the past. He offered Kate and her son a ride to the hotel, but she was still waiting for some friend from work. Alex met his mother from the train, as promised. She had become somehow softer with age, and it suited her very well. She even looked better than she had 10 years ago. Alex, you should have come with the guys. Had such a great time. Thank you all for the sanatorium. You're working a little bit. You could use a vacation too. What? You're in a weird mood. What's your news? Everything okay? Kate met me in the park the other day. She said hi to you. You're Kate? Berta asked back and was confused. Yes, she used to be. She has a son. Oh, Kate, what about her son? She's cured. If you see her again, tell her I said hello. I don't think I'll see her again. She lives far away now, just in time to go on vacation. To go. She's married, of course. It would be strange if Kate were left alone. Yes, such a cook. I guess that's not why her son's father married her. Berta walked to the car, silent most of the way. Near the house, she asked, You'll forgive me, son. Mom, what's with the Brazilian soap operas? I'm just going to go check how long it should have been done. I'll at least immediately honestly warn my friends not to expect children from me. Otherwise, in case someone is planning everything and wasting their time, it can't be that her Alex will live his whole life alone with these random girlfriends. I mean, he's not bad. She's the one who confused him. Some mothers are like that. The doctor told her that incurable male infertility isn't that common. Well, let's see what Alex's doctors have to say today. He hasn't called for a long time. If it's really hopeless, you can marry a woman with a child, as long as they're happy with each other. The father is the one who raised him anyway. Dan should call to say hello from Kate. He will be pleased. What do people do to take away the anxiety, to know that everything will be okay from here on out? Berta went on social media and spent about 15 minutes searching. Here we are. How fortunate that it's not cartoons or a pussycat on the avatar. And just a close-up photo you can recognize and under someone else's last name, Kate. A little white boy in her arms. The page is closed, but you can write a message. She did.